teacher. The guy who wrote this in Kalendi were contemporaries. His name was Ishmael Jamal. He was my first teacher, and it was just a bunch of masters in there. Many of them are gone now, but some of them are still here. Lila O Africa, those were the people that were at a workshop that they were having. Okay, so now we're going to go into the lecture here, our talk. So do, or D-O-U, in Mandarin basically means all. So all. So we want it, everything is comprised of the all. And from the all, everything came into existence. So I know many of you have eaten Chinese food, and I always ask people, say, who's eating Chinese food before? Can I get your hand? Everybody, right? Who's tried Asian medicine or acupuncture? So about 5 of you out of the remaining. But the thing is that we want to keep the people and the culture and the medicine together because there is no separation. And the words that come into focus is the play of forces, which is yin and yang. Oftentimes we hear yin and yang, but it's actually yin and yang. So there's actually no G on the yin part. And this comes, everything is a play from the forces, from the law of opposites. Okay. Now, within yin and yang, there are 4 relationships. Anyone ever heard of 4 relationships of yin and yang? Okay. So this is more that's involved here. So obviously we know that there are opposites. Hot and cold, up and down, in and out, dark, light, heavy, light, okay, small, large, all these different contrasts, because the only way that we will know one is from the other, because this is the world in which we live in, is duality. So they're opposites, but they also are the second one, they're also interdependent. They depend on each other to exist. Okay, they depend on each other to exist. Human beings, we depend on each other to exist. Okay, masculine and feminine depend on each other to exist. Okay, the things that we consume are coming up from the earth, and the way that we store them. We depend on a storage unit, which is cool, to keep things that we pulled up out of the ground that may spoil or have issues with preservation, because it needs to be at a certain temperature to hold it for a certain time. Now, the third one is mutual consumption, and this is the fight. Okay, this is what keeps it going. Okay, it's like you think about people. All right, you walk into a room, you meet people, whether it's at home, work, family relationships. Everyone is vying for what? Attention, energy, or something. We want something from someone. Either we're going to give it or we're going to take it. Okay? You come home and it's like, oh, I've exhausted myself. Now you need time to relax. So the relaxation is that which is consuming that energy that you've been used. It's always this play between both sides. So if you have you meet someone, talk to someone about whatever the issue is, there's always going to be some type of interaction, a play on conversation, words, or whatever. Okay, and the last one is mutual, is intertransformational, and this is where yin turns into yang, and yang turns into yin. So if someone runs a marathon, obviously, or extends themselves, now they've used all this yang energy, but what's their next step? They have to relax. Okay, someone who's sitting down all the time, at some point they're gonna have to get up and move, either to go to the bathroom, go somewhere, but something has to start, because this is where the transformation happens. And so even in the process of a lifetime, you can look at, okay, you show up as masculine and another time feminine, because this is what Paul talks about in the Emerald Tablets. We see you going from lifetime to lifetime, changing forms. So we just keep moving, we keep going on and on and on. These are the messages that this shows. This is what yin and yang is. So there are 4 aspects of it. And so anytime that you see the law of opposites, just know. And then there's another play on it where one can look like it's masculine or one can look like it's feminine, but it's because the other one is actually weaker and it's not performing the way that it should. And that's a little bit more complex, but that's what I wanted to share on that so far. So let's go into acupuncture now. And if anyone has any questions anywhere along this talk, just feel free to raise your hand and we can go further into your questions. So people always ask me, what is acupuncture? All right. Okay. Where did it come from? Where did it originate? All right. Well, obviously, we think about China, but when you think about the cultures around the world, everyone has been using these types of sciences, these meridian pathways for so long, for many, many years. You see people with tattoos. Many of you have tattoos, but those are along meridian pathways, right? They use some type of ink. You use some different type of metal that's in the ink that's associating or being going along certain channels, certain pathways. So you see people from different tribes and different places around the world where they have scarring on their faces. This is a portion or an aspect of what we would call meridian acupuncture, ley lines within the body. So, but there's 8 branches to this. So most people just think of a needle, okay, like these. Anybody ever seen these? You've seen? That's a long one, but if you want to come up here and look at it and pass around, we'll talk about some of this shortly. But there's 8 branches. So I'll put up here on the 8 branches. And these 8 branches consist of what it is as far as the healing process and how we conduct ourselves in the evolutionary process, okay? Because that was the whole purpose and idea of it, was to evolve, keep your body in flow and everything like that, so that we can move on to the next stage and the next stage. So you have 8 branches here. So first one is obviously acupuncture, but then there's what we call moxibustion, okay, which is IO, which is a heat therapy. The reason being is because some people live near the ocean. They live up in the mountains where the climate is damp and heavy. So they would have more issues with their joints, okay, with their digestive system, with their nasal passages, only because of the external forces that are, pressed upon them, their living conditions. So they had to add a form of heat therapy to that.
Can you repeat the name for it?
A moxibustion? Moxibustion.
We do not have spell check.
Please?
That's moxibustion. And this is the Mandarin Chinese name of IEL.
Oh.
So it actually warms, so it warms the body. This is a smokeless one, right here. Okay.
How do you use that?
So this is used by, we certainly light it, and it goes in here like this, and you roll it on the skin. Wow. So then the heat goes through these little vents in here. See the vents? And that's what that does. Yeah. So it's a different way. That's called a lion warmer. They have a tiger warmer. So that's the larger one. It's called a lion warmer.
I've seen the needles go in, and then the practitioner use
like a heating element. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, but that's a looser form of it.
Okay.
It's a loose, that's the loose herb. So that actually, so the heat is being transferred down through the needle into the channel. So that's to help move the blood, resolve cold and damp.
So is that something that you can do on your own?
You can. We were gonna talk a little bit about that. But this is called a shishing, which is your finger. We call it finger. So it's finger pressure. Okay. This is a tation. So you can do these. I have some of these if you want interested in that. Start there. But some of that you can use, especially when you start going on your journeys. Some, things of that nature that you can prepare your body to stimulate some of the points. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have herbal medicine, which many know about. Herbal medicine. The thing in which the Asian system is comprised of is that they look at herbs as a family, so not just one herb by itself. You have a chief, or a king or queen, a chief, and a deputy. So the deputy actually neutralizes the poisons that the chief herb may have, or the things that it causes, because it's always yin and yang. You gonna get some give and some take. All right. So if just because it's natural, it came from Mother Nature, she's not that kind. She said you have to learn some lessons on this planet. So that's basically what that's about. So you have the king or queen or the chief. Then you have the deputy. Then the assistant, which further helps the king or queen do the job that it wants to. And then the envoy is like the herb that goes in and opens up the channel so that they can go and do it. It's like an advanced party person. If you ever ran the military, you understand that lingo. So the next one, so we have acupuncture, microbustion, food, diet therapy. All right, so then the following, other than that, is food and diet. So these are things, we'll get more into that, but food, we have all different ideas and processes about food. So whatever the choices that you choose, and that's your part of your journey right now. But that's just this part. And if you want to know my perspective, then if you're interested in consultation and stuff, we'll go from there. But scientific, we go with the scientific process as well. And then they have exercise, which is internal and external exercises. So obviously the internal exercises are the Qigongs, your Tai Chis, your breathing exercises, okay? So, and then obviously some of your more things that you do, calisthenics, some of the hard form martial arts. Next one is feng shui. The feng shui is wind water. So this is where you are in the art of geomancy, where we're looking at the energy ley lines of the earth. See, because the earth, just like our bodies, they're basically one with everything. So there's a process of how the currents are running in the planet, and do we know how to connect with the currents on the planet? There are many people, billionaires, who know this art that will not tell us. They haven't shown us, obviously. I'm sure they're in this city and every other major city. They take advantages with these currents, and they use their magic, their sex magic, and everything else to incorporate this science of feng shui. I had an instructor when I was in school. He said, my grandfather is much more powerful than Mao Zedong, who was the president of China at one time. And he said the reason was because he was buried on a mountain higher than Mao Zedong was. So people use feng shui not only for geomancy, the art of placement, and in the obvious, but also yin feng shui is how they deal with their ancestors. So this comes along with ancestor worship, like they set up an ancestor altar, but they also go to the graveyard and put things there, where they operate that way. All right, so the next one is fasting and meditation. All right, so fasting and meditation comes into that. This starts to get more into the mushrooms. Some of you probably heard of dark body dharma, where they would go into the caves and sit for 9 years or whatever. So what was he doing in the cave for 9 years? He was activating that DMT, right? He was activating that DMT. So these are the things that have been left out. When I was a student, I was asking these questions, but wasn't getting any answers. Okay, and then astrology. Okay, some of you've seen little placemats, your dog or dragon or whatever. But that's also a complex science. And the last one is Tuina, which is, they call it Duina, is the body work, which the science of chiropractic came out of Tuina, the body work form. So they went to China and they used the Ren and the Du channels, and they came up with Tuina. So this is body alignment and structures. So outside of acupuncture, you have 8 branches, all right? So from one needle, and all of them go together, because if one isn't serving the purpose, we could also look at another one, because it may be something in your house that's causing the problem, right? It could be the mold, it could be the lights, it could be the dog, okay? That's causing the problem for us, for our growth, all right? Okay, so this is the relationship here. Any questions? Okay, all right, okay.
Question.
How did you get, or how did you get called into like the Chinese tradition?
That was I got into like practicing the Tai Chis and Qigongs and things of that nature. So one thing led to another, but I had a shoulder problem from playing, in sports and everything. And I went to an acupuncturist after I had gone to get cortisone shots and everything, and it didn't hold. So I went to go see Dr. Alcerto over in Norfolk, and probably about 2 treatments I had, and that was 30 years ago, so no problem. Since then, on this shoulder. So one thing led to another, and I was just tired of, the work that I was doing I've been doing for 8 years, traveling all over the place, and I was travel fatigued, so I wanted to do something else.
Nice.
And this just kind of grabbed me, the wisdom kind of grabbed me, so. And then when I looked back at my family history, I saw that was what I was supposed to do, really. Okay. All right, so there are actually 15 meridians. I know we talk about 12, but there are actually 15, and they all relate to an organ. Okay, and these organs traject in our body. So what organs do we have? We have the heart, right? Okay, then we have liver, have a spleen. Okay, you have small intestine, large intestine, lungs, all right?
Kidney.
And kidneys, the gallbladder, the urinary bladder, right? Okay, so, all right, so we have all of these organs. What is an organ? There's a piano back there, right? Right, but it's there to create some type of movement, vibration, frequency. So we have organs, and then if the organ is in tune, it makes beautiful music. If a person knows how to play the organ, it makes wonderful music. If we don't, now we have what? Got some other issues now. Okay, the organ is not tuned, so now we're seeing issues with our bodies or something that's showing up as far as the organs are concerned. So, like, say for instance, right here, if you just take your hand, just like this, okay, right below your pinky, and you just press here. Now, some of you, your sisters, if you have bra, you just pressed right behind the underwire. Okay? That's that point. Anybody feel a little tension or anything right there?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you do, okay, that's part of your lymphatic system. This is the master point for your lymphatic system. Okay, so this if you want to move your lymph, this is spleen 21. It's the only meridian that has one point on it, even though it's connected to the spleen. But usually most women right behind that underwire, I tell them to press it, they go, ow, that don't feel good. So that metal is distorting those pathways. Okay? So it distorts those pathways. So you know, and then there's University of California did all the research and did a book, project called Dress to Kill. Okay, Dress to Kill, stockings, underwear, the works. How things distort our energy flow, which is similar to, you know, some of the technology that's being impressed upon us at the moment. Okay, so we have 12 ordinary, then we have the primary Ren and the Do that create this circle or pattern within us. Okay, so I have that.
Questions?
Good. I'm listening.
When you mentioned how you had the acupuncture for your shoulder,
Yes.
does it matter what kind of like injury or issue it is? Like, can it be like a tendon? Does it have to be an older injury? Like, can it be fairly recent?
Oh, well, you know, we have to assess it, but if it's chronic, if it's a chronic injury, you have to treat it one way. If it's acute or if it's subacute. So it just depends, and then depends on where it is, because if it's running through a particular part of the shoulder, it's connected to a different organ. So then we have to start investigating, and then we can, you know, find out about it. Okay, so many of you know what this is. Maybe some of you don't. Anybody don't? Not familiar with the 5 elements? Okay, this is the this is the 5 element chart system. Okay, so this would be, because this is wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Okay, each one of these is a parent. Each one is a grandparent and a son, a daughter, whatever. Okay, so wood is the mother of fire. Fire is the mother of earth. Earth is the mother of metal. Metal is the mother of water, and water is the mother of wood. Right, so the wood makes the metal grow, you know, the trees and things of that nature. All right, okay. Fire, the wood, the ash from the fire, from the wood, feeds. Fire consumes. It consumes wood. Okay, because the children consume the parents' energy. Right, the parent feeds the child. Okay, and then all of that turns into the earth, because the earth collects everything. And out of that we get metal, and then from the iron ore we get the water. Then there's a grandparent relationship. Okay, parents have a hard time with the child, so they just send them over to the grandparents. Grandparents know how to handle them, right? But then they send them home after they do that. So water puts out fire. Okay, right? It controls fire. Fire melts metal. Right, this is how you form things, okay? And metal chops wood, right? And then the wood, the leaves, and those things fall and cover the earth. But the earth is always underwater. It's always guiding water. Wherever you are, a lake, a stream, a river, the sea, there's always the earth that's guiding the water. So this is the relationship. But in this relationship, you also have organs that are associated with this, and a season that's associated with it, and a time of day that's associated with this process. So how all this ties into this conference, it brings this into focus. So anytime of the day. So it's that's not right now, but somewhere. Okay. So it's somewhere between 9 and 11 right now. So Huh?
It's 11:04.
It's 11:04, so we just crossed over into the heart. So the fire time of the day. Okay? Alright, so here is fire. So it can now, it starts to feed the digestive system and the mind. But the heart has to deal with our mind, our opening of our heart, our impatience, and things of that nature. Also a part of the small intestines. She said because here, there's two fires, okay? Now there's some organs that we didn't talk about, and that was the pericardium, and what they call the sand jiao. So the pericardium is the heart protector. It protects the emperor, it protects your heart. It's like a shock absorber for your heart. Western medicine talks about it some, but we get a little bit more into it here. The sand jiao, it says it governs the sluices, so it opens up in the heart. It connects your upper and middle and lower bodies. It's like a link to the entire body. These are the spiritual centers of, this is called the minister of fire, okay? So it deals, yes?
You said the sun jiao governs the what?
It connects your upper, lower, and middle of your body. It's basically the tree of life.
Okay, because I misheard what it governs.
It's a part of the fire element. It governs the blood vessels. Yeah. All fire governs the blood vessels. It's all connected to, the helium in our body. I mean hydrogen, excuse me. Okay. All right, but yeah, so this is where you get your upper and lower and middle jiaos from. So this is our composition of the 5 elements. All right, so we're going somewhere with it. So who wants to know? Because like me, I was asking the question. I went to school and they just told me, okay, these meridians, they go here, and you learn how to measure where the points are. Soon, 1 soon, 2 soon, by using your hand, and you go up your arm or your leg or on the side of the face. Okay, this is 1 soon, this is 1 soon, this is 2 soon, this is 3 soon. Okay, this is what we call the unit of measurement. Now, in the process of learning this, I still wanted to know, well, how did they know where these meridians came from? Right? You would want to know that. You're like, oh, it's in the body. So, first thing I did was start looking it up. This was years ago, so I ended up with the tool, and because wasn't able to get something around to show you. So there was a guy named Dr. Vol and Dr. Tanaka, and they started to measure where in the body electricity across 2 points. So some of you are familiar with Ohm's law, okay? So basically, we're electrical beings. Anybody would agree or disagree with that? Agree with that. Okay. So you walk across the floor in the wintertime, you go touch something, you go get a shot. Right? Okay. But the earth gets struck by lightning 1,000,000 times a minute. Can you imagine how much static energy that is? 1,000,000 times a minute, this earth. So we have it on us all of the time. Okay? This is what we call basic electronics, right? Okay. So the voltage, the movement, the charge across 2 points equals the amperes or the amps times the resistance. Okay, so what? Okay, so this is the voltage, the charge across 2 points. The ampere is the potential between those 2 points that's going across there. Okay, and then the resistance is whether the wire, whatever else that's holding back that charge that gives us this actual value. Human body, okay, we have the same thing going on. Same exact thing going on. So you have a headache. Where is the resistance coming from? So our cells, we have 75 trillion of them, according to some people. Some colleges or some cadres or whatever, they agree that we have this many cells. So the information that's being transferred, it's basically a huge number, but the information that's being transferred is being hindered by something. Either it's something that we are thinking about, something that we ate, something that we've been exposed to. See, so we have this exposure. So it slows down the flow and the rate of our blood. And so then when we have blood stagnation, what happens? It gives us the oscillation. Now the wave is now distorted, right? It becomes distorted. And so this is a signal. We call it a symptom, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the body's code. We just have to decipher the code. If we don't decipher the code, then we may want to cover it up, okay? With something that isolates and concentrates, which is a drug, instead of re-engineering or adjusting the resistance. There's too much resistance across that circuit, across that loop, and then it can free it up. Either the wire's frayed, so that's the nerve, fibromyalgia, things like that. So there's a fray in it, and so things
Just hold here.
Yes. So they start to you have a flux going on, and then there's sparks that happen, and then things get out of unison. So then we have other things that can show up. This is how this happens. So I wanted to find out. So Dr. Vole in the 1940s, and Tanaka, he was in the early 50s. It's a Japanese style, because, and I want to backtrack a little bit, there's more than just one style of acupuncture, by the way. Okay, you have Chinese style, obviously, Tibetans, okay, the Indians, they do what they call marma, or tapping, on certain specific points. You got Torahari, which is for blind people, you know, where it's just all about palpation and everything, okay? And then you got Rodoroko, which is where they use electricity into certain points to break up the blockage. Now, interestingly enough, there's a book called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg. He goes in there, he talks about how back in the 1800s, where they used to use electricity to go on dates with each other, right? So you would go to this house, and they would shock you with electricity while you kissed your date, right? So then you would determine, it's like, oh wow, this is like the best date ever. So whatever the greatest shock you could take was like the great date or whatever.
Wow. That's what they call, like, I felt that spark.
Well, that's Mark, right? It starts like that. Okay, you know. So yeah, there's a conductivity that we're actually looking for, and so when it breaks down and it stagnates, this is where we end up with our issues and things that it can be whatever it is, you know, whatever issues that we have, and as human beings, you know, that's going on every day. We can be healthy today, sick tomorrow, okay? And that goes for me or any other practitioner that I know that's associated with, okay? So we're all having to deal with the same challenges of correcting this circuit daily, just like everybody else. If somebody act like they're above it, go the opposite way. That's my advice. Okay, all right. Okay, so now I want to talk more about this herbal medicines. Okay. If anyone ever heard of and how they relate to these meridians? Okay. Okay, so I was asking the question, how did they get this information? Where did this information come from? And after I started to use the mushrooms, things started to open up. So here's a picture, you don't know, because Lee Goma.